All right, well, let's get started. Welcome to today's Globe Observer Connect. I'm happy to see you all here today. Um, we we missed doing these for a couple of months, so it's nice to be back. Um, just a reminder, we are recording this, so if you do not want to be seen on camera or have your voice recorded and shared out, please feel free to use the chat to contribute to the conversation, and we'll keep an eye on that. So I'm Holly Kohl. For those who don't know me, I manage the implementation of Globe Observer with citizen scientists. And we're really excited today to tell you a little bit about a couple of newer features. They've been in the app for a few months now, but we weren't able to tell you about them in a Globe Observer Connect because of the US government shutdown. So better late than never. We wanted to have a chance to talk about some of those new features and what you might be able to do with them. And sorry, distracted letting people in here. What you may be able to do with them, and you just answer your questions about them and have a conversation. And then we will, if you have other kinds of questions for us, we're happy to have that conversation as well. So, all right. So my colleague Kristen is here as well and is going to help present. But can you go ahead and go to the next slide, Kristen? All right. So, oh, okay. So the first feature we wanted to tell you about is practice mode. This is really exciting. It's something we had been wanting to do for quite a while, and I'm really excited that we're able to implement it now. And the second feature we're going to talk about is the cloud feature photos function capability that that we're using for a special project, a new project with blowing snow. And so we'll talk about both of those. So to start out, practice mode is a way for you to use the Globe Observer app without logging in. And you might think, why would I do this? What we found is that whenever we go out and we do presentations or we're trying to teach people about the app with a group, it's sometimes really difficult, or it has been very difficult to do that because everybody downloads the app and then you have to take some time for everybody to create an account and verify their account and take the training, and then they can open the app and see what it's all about. And this new function means that you can download the app, look at it immediately, start using it immediately, explore the app, collect data, submit data. The data is not saved, but it's you go through the whole process so you can see what that's like. And we think that it will make the scenarios where you're doing this with a group of people or training other people how to use the app will make it easier. The other scenario that we saw that we think will be really helpful is when you're trying to figure out how to use maybe a different protocol in the app that you haven't done before, different function of the app you haven't done. You can just try it out and experiment with it and get comfortable with it before you're actually submitting data. And we think this will help improve data quality because we do see from time to time data submitted that is very clear that somebody is practicing in their living room, or it's not real data. And so I think being able to practice without collecting real data will be very helpful. Kristen or Joe, did you have anything else you wanted to say about practice mode?
Just going to go through, Holly. So the first slide that I had there was, and I don't know if I can, yeah, I have it. So this is what it would look like for somebody who has not created an account yet. So they've just downloaded the app. So you'll see the new button at the bottom. If you're a regular user of Globe Observer, you don't necessarily see the screen very often because you're usually already logged into your app. But so this is what people will see if they're brand new, just downloading the app, and you can see the new option at the bottom. Practice mode, data is not saved, and then you can click on that or tap on that, and it'll go in to the app, and people can try it out. But then to show a little bit about what it's going to look like if you are already a user of the app, but as Holly was just talking about, you want to test out a new protocol, or you want to try some things and see how it works without sending in the data for real. So then you can get to that in the settings, the little gear icon in the lower right, and then you'll see that big red button that says practice mode. And that'll allow you to go into this practice mode, test mode. And you'll notice in the far right screen here, it has that big red bar at the top that indicates, so that it reminds you that you are in practice mode, that this is not real data. And so that's what it would look like if you're already logged in. And then here's an example again across, if you're doing a trees observation, it's got practice mode at the top, very clear that this is practice mode, that you are, that big red at the top. And then it's a little hard to see, but if you had selected this trees data, and then it says send practice data not saved. So again, reminding you that you're trying it out, that it's not being real data. So trying to remind you in lots of places. And then to get back to your regular mode, that's when you go to exit practice mode. That's back on the settings page. And then you can go back to sending real data. So you can go through all the steps if you want to do a demonstration in a classroom and have your screen showing, but don't want to send the data. Or again, some of the scenarios that Holly was talking about with a group of new users, or just trying out new features without wanting to send the real data. So that's sort of what, and I think then I go into the cloud special features. So I don't know. I mean, Joe Wiklawick is DIS team, is on the app development team. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Joe.
No, I think you covered it. We certainly heard that people wanted a chance to try these things out because they care about sending good data and wanted an opportunity to practice. So we were excited to build this out for everyone and see how they like it.
Before we go on to cloud special photos, anybody have any questions or about practice mode? Alrighty. Well, cloud special feature. This is the other new function that was included in, I think it was the same update, if not very near in time. And that is the ability to add a special feature photo to your cloud observations. So as you probably know, or as you may know, when you take a cloud observation, you tell us what's in the sky, you tell us about cloud types, cloud cover, all of that. And then you take photos facing north, south, east, and west, straight up and straight down, to show us a view of the sky, a 360 view of the sky. But you've probably experienced this where there's an interesting feature on the horizon, say, that is below what you can capture in your ordinary cloud photos. And you want to report that, you want to share it. There's a really cool cloud, there's a dust storm. There's haze, like wildfire smoke. You see all that on the horizon. You want to share that, and we want that information as well. But we didn't have a good way to have you include that without breaking the protocol. So we added a new feature to clouds that would allow you to share up to 4 photos that are not those north, south, east, west 14-degree photos that you ordinarily submit. And so when you, to use that, when you finish your cloud observation, you'll see now an option on the final screen to take a feature photo. And if you tap that, it will allow you to then take the photo, to upload the photo into the app, much like the manual photo upload has worked if some of you have used that approach before. And then you can add notes, things in the caption like I'm facing northeast, or I'm looking at a dust storm, or any relevant information. You can also, so as you see in the screenshot here, there's an option to add field notes now, which we did not have in clouds before. We had it in some of the other tools, but not in clouds. So you can add some of the information about why you're taking a special feature photo in that field right there. So you now is for a cloud observation, your standard observation is 6. Now we can have up to 10 photos associated with a cloud observation if needed. So I wanted to share one way that we're using this. We are working with a scientist at NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And he has been working on ways to identify blowing snow in satellite data. Blowing snow is it's a significant hazard for travel because it comes up very suddenly. It happens when there's fresh snow on the ground and you get wind blowing, and that snow blows up to eye level or higher, and it decreases visibility significantly. It can happen very suddenly and without a lot of warning. And so, of course, the meteorologists, people who provide forecasts and warnings, want a way to be able to warn people that blowing snow is occurring. And in the past, the only way they've really had to do that is if they get reports from highway webcams or reports from law enforcement reporting that this is happening. And so they wanted a way to get more ground reports of blowing snow in places that are not highways and other locations so that they can help verify that the satellite data product that they're developing to track blowing snow is accurately tracking blowing snow. And the satellite data product is something that's relatively new. It's a capability that is made possible through a new generation of polar orbiting weather satellites. There's a nice example here from, I believe, VIIRS, the VIIRS sensor. And by using some of the spectral bands like the near infrared and visible light bands and combining those they can then see the blowing snow over the field of white snow, which has been a difficult thing to detect before. So it's pretty exciting that they're starting to do this, and they've asked us for help verifying when blowing snow happens. And to do this, we're using cloud special features. You want to go to the next slide? So to participate in blowing snow using cloud special features, I'll tap on clouds, start a new cloud observation, and then you'll go to obscured. Obscured means I can't really see the sky because there's something obscuring my view, or maybe I can see the sky, but there is something also obscuring visibility. And you're going to choose the blowing snow option. And then it will take you from there to the photo screen, and you can go to take feature photo and capture an image of that blowing snow. And then they've asked that we include in the field notes there an indication of any kind of visible landmarks. You know, like in this case, there's a water tower, and you can say how far away the water tower is from your location, just to give them a sense of how bad the visibility is. If you know that information. If you don't, that's okay. The photo by itself is great. And that just will give them the information to verify. So here's example of how we're using that special feature photo. I think there are other ways that scientists will find to use it going forward. And I think it's a really exciting addition. So I'm going to again pause and see if Kristen or Joe have anything to add. And actually, I think I saw Marile Colon Robles join the chat and join the meeting. And Marile, this is a cloud thing. So if you have anything to add, I'll be quiet and let one of you speak up.
I'm just going to comment that Mario says in the chat that that they've been using this feature to send sunrise photos, which you know are lovely, and we always like to see. I always enjoy the pretty photos, but yeah, there's also a way like this is focusing on something that has a very specific scientific purpose. But it is true that if you just see a neat cloud or a pretty sunrise, it can also be used for that purpose.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, this is very exciting and science focused. Because as if you've seen me, so hi, my name is Marile. I'm the one that looks at all the cloud observations, part of the clouds team at NASA Langley Research Center. When you take the photographs, it's kind of like having me right next to you. And I love that because then I look at what the satellite reported. And remember, satellites are great, but they're not always perfect. It depends on the instrument and what was happening in that moment. So then it's kind of like I'm having this cool conversation with you when you add those photographs. And then the feature photo is just it allows me when I go, oh, what if, or what happened in this, and then it kind of gives me a new sense, a new clue, a new aha moment, depending on what you observed, what's happening with the satellite. Is it blowing snow? Is it cloudy when it's blowing snow? Like there's all these moments when your photos of the ground of what's happening are crucial and very important. Of course, if I have any extra questions and you've clicked yes, I would like to be reached. I allow a scientist to reach out with some questions, then I could reach out to you and we can talk about that moment. But it is a really cool way of getting even more observations of what's happening and what you're seeing.
Thank you. All right. So, any questions about the new features or ideas about how you might be using them?
Well, and I didn't include the slide in here. I think, Holly, in the other presentation you had, the next slide was about the NASA response mappers, just to point out that, so this is we first had the special features option in the land cover tool. And so the idea there was that originally came out of the Fresh Eyes on Ice project up in Alaska, that they were interested in having photos upriver and downriver looking at river ice. And so the north, south, east, west photos didn't necessarily capture exactly what they needed. And so that's where the original special feature photos came out about for land cover. And then we had realized we were working with the NASA disasters group, who wanted photos of before and after for hurricanes. And so we for better for the US, we did not have any hurricanes in the US this year, any major hurricanes. But I think it's kind of an interesting example of we had a purpose for one community. The Fresh Eyes on Ice asked for something specific to meet their scientific needs, and also were able to fund some of the app development to make that special features photo. But then also we were able to pull that into, then, hey, that would be useful for clouds observations. For the I think one of the projects that we had that Marley worked on with some other scientists was dust observations. But what we had to have people do was, instead of the 14-degree observations, do those horizon photos. Now we can do both, the regular observation plus the horizon photo. So I think it's just, and in addition to the scientific use of the special feature photos for both land cover and clouds, I think it's an interesting example of one group having an idea that works well for them, and then figuring out ways that it actually would be useful for other people collecting data. And I'm sure many other people will use, I think the pattern that I've noticed is we put a new feature in the app with an idea of this is how it's going to be used. And then somebody comes up with a really clever way to use it in a different way that we had not even thought about, which I always enjoy when that happens.
Any other questions about anything else? Well, we have some big changes coming to the app next week. We'll be putting out some announcements about that. I think I think it'll be an exciting change for this community, and so keep your eyes open for that update. It will it will change kind of some how you are able to access things in the Globe program, and you'll be able to do a lot more. So I think that will be exciting. We're also going to be adding a new protocol based on an existing NASA citizen science project. The protocol will be looking at lake levels, and that'll be coming very soon. It's based on the existing project called Lake Observations by Citizen Scientists and Satellites, or LOX. And Bruce, anyway, we could get the no contrails moved to the top so it is like the no high level button. That's a good idea.
I think, if I recall correctly, and Marley, maybe you remember, I think we had put it at the bottom deliberately because we wanted to make sure people thought through that and just didn't automatically say no contrails or skip. That I think that was sort of that you have to stop and think enough to say that you're actually deliberately saying no contrails and not just skip, because we were worried about people doing that. Do you remember that, Marley? Or Joe, do you remember if that was part of the reasoning?
So the no contrails was added afterwards, and that
Okay.
might be why it's in the bottom. So before we didn't have sorry, I can turn my camera. I apologize. I'm enjoying my heater because it's really cold. When looking at the data back in 2018, and we did that research paper led by Dr. Brant Dotson, it was hard to determine if the observation was no contrails were present, or I did not report it, or somebody skipped it, basically. So that no contrails button was then added extra so that future data sets would have that option, and when we're digging into the data, we would know better. But that's my recollection. I think Joe would know best.
So, but maybe it being at the bottom was just because we added it later. I think what I was remembering, Marley, is what you were talking about is wanting to distinguish between no data, we don't have information about one way or the other, versus deliberately saying, I do not see any contrails. So,
Yeah, and I think the fact that we've got the two buttons for no contrails and skip contrails is, we at that point we really start pushing the contrails counters down if we move both of them up there. But perhaps no contrails at the top, skip at the bottom is something for us to consider.
Yeah, it would make it consistent with the other cloud screen. So it's a good suggestion. Thank you. Marle, there's another, Jody has a question in the chat that I think is a good question. And I think that you recently addressed it in a blog post, but I'll leave it to you. And she's asking about how to link her student account information to cloud observation satellite match data so that the student measurement of clouds is directly related to the satellite match that they receive in the email. Yeah, and you're right. Holding a sign that says "I'm Cloud Hero 47" isn't going to work.
No,
because the AI will blur out all text.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So in the teacher email, you get all the student links, but you're not sure which link goes with which student.
Right. This came from a teacher that I work with, and she's really on fire doing great things. And so she wants to make sure the students see the satellite match data so they can improve their own observations. But it comes back as like student 123, but the students are entering data under Cloud Hero 47. So she's not sure which satellite match goes to which student.
So I think the difference is, and this, Marley, this may be something that we can talk to Tina Rogerson about, because I think the satellite emails, the matches are addressed to what the name is in the system, which for students is student 23 of Jody Haney, for example. But what the teacher sees more easily is that username, that display name. And I don't think Tina puts that in the emails. So maybe we can talk about a way, if there's a way to display both the name and the name in the system, which might just be citizen scientist or student X of teacher, and the username when the emails get sent out, because that might be a simple fix if that's an easy thing for Tina to do.
If it's data that's in the API, she can pull that and then change that, Jody.
Okay,
so
that's great.
Tina, as long as she can pull it.
Yeah, we talked about using captions, but I thought that's not really what we want to do. A caption should describe the photo, right? So it's like a workaround, but it's not very helpful to anybody else who wants to use that photo. So that would be great if they could come through the email.
Jody, there are also ways to, because the My Observations URL and the user ID is part of the URL for the satellite cloud matches. So that numeric user ID is part of that, and so there would be ways to potentially to connect that to the username as well, to this display name. think it's not going to be, but it's something that for individual teachers we could help do. Especially, it sounds like this teacher is pretty enthusiastic.
Yeah.
But we can look into a way to maybe be able to display both or have the email send out both the username, the name in the system, and the display name that's in the Globe database.
That'd be great. Okay, thanks.
There's another contrail question. With regard to contrails, do you differentiate between there are no contrails because there were no planes passing by, and there are planes in the sky that are not producing contrails? I'm not sure when to hit skip contrails and when to say none were observed.
Oh, that's an interesting question. So for those both, I would put no, but now, especially that you have the comment section, even in a photo comment, you can also add no airplanes present. Now, remember with contrails, because I'm working with the SACCOR team here at NASA Langley Research Center, and one of the big things is looking at contrails and the engines and working with the FAA and the engine types and all these things. They can pull data, traffic data out. So this is why I say always answer no if none are visible. Now that means that you are able to see high clouds. If the sky is total cloud cover and there's low clouds and the low clouds are not letting you see high clouds, then I would say skip or put a comment, because then the clouds are not letting you see contrails and there might be contrails there. But if it's pretty clear, and if there were a contrail, you would be able to see a contrail, but you don't see any contrails. For those two, just put no. If you want to add a comment, you can add a comment of no flights at this time. But for anybody looking at contrails, they can pull I think it's ADSB data. I always mix the letters in that, but it's looking at when the flights were at which times. And so people tend to compare that with contrail cloud observations. That's a great question.
And Marley, that seems like one that would be actually good to add to the FAQ.
Yeah, I definitely learned something from you. Thank you. Thanks for asking the question too. All right, we're at 12:30. I'm happy to stay on if people have more questions, but I do want to let you all know that our next Globe Observer Connect will be on January 22nd. It'll be a report out from the NASA disasters team that we worked with to set up to run the NASA Response Mappers project this summer. And they'll tell us a little bit about the data that they received as part of that project and how they hope to use it and what they learned from it, because even though there weren't any hurricanes for them to see in the documentation, they were able to look at the photos and start to think about how they might use photos of damage in the future. So that'll be an exciting. I'm looking forward to hearing from them. So January 22nd at noon, that should be on the Globe Observer website in the next day or two with information about how to register. And we look forward to seeing you there. All right, any more questions? All right. Well, feel free to reach out anytime. The contact us form on the Observer website comes straight to us, and or use the help button in the app. We're happy to have a conversation via email, and otherwise, we'll see you next month on January 22nd. Thank you, everybody. Bye.